Welcome to Two Bottles Deep. We're a podcast where we venture into the world armed with humor, sarcasm, and a willingness to admit when we're wrong. Well, most of the time.
And our goal is to have open and honest conversations while we discuss topics that affect us as humans and as gay men.
And thank you so much for listening. And now it's time to get Two Bottles Deep. Hello, Wes.
Hi, Phil.
How are you, babe?
Another beautiful day in the TBD studio.
It really is. How are you?
I am great, and I'm ready for our special guest, T-Dub, this week.
So here's what happened. So a couple days after we released the episode about the flag controversy in Tennessee schools, we were contacted by a school counselor in Georgia. She's been a counselor for 17 years and has worked in both Tennessee and Georgia and has a unique perspective on this topic. So we thought it was only right to have her on the show today. So please make welcome to the Two Bottles Deep studio. It's Marie Papini.
Yes.
Hey, guys.
Welcome.
You didn't see that, Marie, but it is a standing ovation here in our crowded studio.
Well, thank you. Thank you.
You could hear it.
Yeah.
Just reverberate through your speakers. We are so honored that you take the time to talk with us about the Tennessee pride flag in schools.
Yeah.
Controversy.
Yeah. Thanks for having me.
A veteran. Marie and I go back actually to college. We didn't know each other well. She was doing her graduate work and studies. I remember you came to my fraternity house and you were doing a study on something.
Drinking habits. The fraternity brothers were thrilled with me.
Oh, we hated her. And then I moved to Nashville and we reconnected at a Western Illinois University alumni thing. And then we became bowling buddies.
Naturally, we joined a bowling league.
Yeah, joined a bowling league. We won a couple seasons. And I think one season we didn't win, but we ended up taking the championship t-shirts.
Yeah, that sounds right.
Oh, yeah.
We just needed those. Yeah. I mean, you do it for the shirt.
Yeah.
But so the bill, just to remind everybody, House Bill 1605 here in Tennessee, sponsored by Representative Gino Bolso. He's a Republican from down in Brentwood, conservative, very wealthy area of Nashville. It's a bill that would prohibit Tennessee public schools from displaying flags other than the American flag, Tennessee state flag, school flag, or any flag protected by the Tennessee Heritage Protection Act.
And do you remember your opinion on it?
I do.
Yeah.
I'm to remind people, or if you have not heard the episode, I do not believe pride flags belong in schools.
Yeah. And
Wes, can I ask a question?
Yes.
I was listening to it again for the second time, and I was curious, Wes, if anything changed about your stance from the original airing.
Good question. I plead the fifth this early in the conversation. No, it has. One thing that I love doing this with Philip because he makes me think outside the box, and we have mailbag episodes as well. And we've had a few emails that I think we'll get to at a future mailbag episode. But I mean, it's changed a little bit. That's why I think it'll change more once I hear your opinion too, being in the schools, in the trenches for almost 2 decades. And one thing that stuck out, somebody said to me, I think a listener, Bobby Joe, wrote in that, she works at schools in Illinois. And she's like, if there's a little like 6-inch flag on a desk, who is that hurting? And if that's a safe space for that one child, I want to be there for that kid. So it has changed a little bit.
Okay.
Marie, what was your initial reaction to the episode? And what made you reach out?
So like I said, Wes and I, or like Wes said, we go way back. So I just love listening to y'all's podcast. Philip, we've met before.
Yes.
You're hilarious. You guys are great. And Wes had told me like, hey, I name dropped you. So I want you to go listen to this one episode. So I did. And like, I told Wes later, I was like, I just listened. I was like, oh, Wes, come on. Like, kind of like, does he really believe that? But I also was, when I was re-listening, I was thinking, I think your perspective is valid. I just think you didn't articulate it in the best way initially. So I actually do think that you have a valid stance on this. So that's why I was asking earlier, like, has anything changed?
So what is this bill comes out? What was your initial reaction when you heard about Representative Bolso wanting to ban this flag and any other flag?
Well, so my big takeaway is, first, I think there's too many people making decisions about education who have never once stepped foot in a building as an educator. And I feel like the education profession in general is treated like we can't just use our best judgment and that we're not adults who are like experts at what we do. So that is frustrating. Am I surprised that a bill like this came out of a Republican in Brentwood, Tennessee? No, I'm not surprised. I think that there is, I think it's a slippery slope of deciding what educators can and cannot display in their classroom. And so I obviously was pretty against any bill that would say I could not hang a pride flag in my office or in my classroom or anything like that.
And it wasn't just because it was a pride flag either, right? It was just you don't want anyone to tell you that you can't hang any flag.
Right. Now, yes, and I'm thinking back to like, okay, well, what about the Confederate flag?
Yeah.
And I think it's apples and oranges. I think they're both fruits, but they're very different topics. One represents a lot of hatred and death and destruction, and the other one represents acceptance and teaching tolerance and all the other things that I think a lot of our kids now could really benefit from learning more about.
Yeah. Do you think that there's an appropriate level of school? Like, okay, can it be in high school, but that flag can be hung in a high school room, but not in third grade? Does that play a factor in?
Yeah, I hear what you're saying. So for me, hanging the flag is not, it's not a political statement to me. It's not saying I am an ally, and so every single one of you must be an ally too. What it does provide in the education world is opportunities for conversation about tolerating different people and different perceptions and different backgrounds. And when I was listening to the episode, I in my car, I just kept shouting, "It's about teaching tolerance." And so I don't know that there's like an inappropriate age to start talking about how we tolerate things that maybe we don't agree with. So for me, it's like, I heard the argument of like, let's just keep it in the counseling offices.
Mm-hmm.
But not every student gets to go see the school counselor.
Yeah.
Not every student has a school counselor they want to go see. And so to house it in a very specific space doesn't make sense to me. Just like, we can't just rely on the English teacher to teach how to write. They have to learn how to do that in their social studies class and their science class, right? It has to expand across. It's about like creating a culture of safety and acceptance.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think a teacher deserves the right to determine what is put in his or her particular class?
Within reason, yes.
Yeah. And what's an example? I guess like the Blue Lives Matter flag, like that's something that Wes and I talked about too, that, that's one of those that it's supportive, but it also comes with a little overtone of political ideology. Maybe not for everybody, but, is that something that you think, and I know each of these are so specific, but like, I always try to figure out, what a teacher's perspective is on this. Like, should each teacher be able to determine what's good for their class, I guess is the best question.
I say yes. And I think that, again, everything is within reason, right? So there's always an exception to that rule. So let's talk about the Blue Lives Matter flag, and I could be wrong here. So if I am, please correct me and then edit this whole part out. But the Blue Lives Matter came about after Black Lives Matter movement.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
It was in response to, and it was due to a lot of political unrest about the injustices of police brutality in Black and brown communities.
Mhm.
So to me, you know, should we hang a Blue Lives Matter flag in the classroom? Well, to me, that's not really supporting students. That's supporting your political stance on how we treat Black and brown people from a police standpoint. Whereas the pride flag or the LGBTQ plus flag, rainbow flag, whatever you want to call it, there are kids in every classroom that could apply to, whether it's them directly or somebody they know and love.
Mhm.
And so that's where the difference lies for me.
What if there's a teacher that doesn't want to put that flag in their room? Those, to me, it's all or nothing. So if it's about the support, about these kids feeling safe, I think that's more of a school conversation and to announce that, because not every teacher is going to want to have a flag. So those kids get gypped in a way. You see what I'm saying?
I do. And I think that this is too big of a subject to make it very black and white. There's just so much gray area.
So I was thinking right there. Yeah.
Yeah.
God,
I want to say too, the absence of a pride flag does not mean resistance to the message or being against the message. It just means I chose not to put one in my room.
Yeah. I think like if a school principal is, against gay people and he says, we're not flying the LGBTQIA plus flag in school. Like that's different than saying a teacher's, that every teacher has to put this in their classroom. Right. So I think, a teacher should have the ability to put the flag there so that it lets students who understand it know that it's a safe place. And if they don't understand it, it's a great, talking point.
Mm-hmm.
If they come up, they're like, what is this rainbow flag doing on the desk? Well, you don't have to go into, pro gay, everybody, it's no, this is a flag that means this, and this is the reason it was created and all that. There's, it does get politicized. The flag is used sometimes politically, but that's not the point, the purpose of it there in schools.
So as a school counselor, Marie, I come to you as a straight heteronormative parent and say, I don't want my kid exposed to that. How do you handle that conversation?
Well, how much time do we have?
We have 3 days, actually.
So let me tell you a quick story. I moved from a charter school in the heart of East Nashville, which was tended to be a little bit more left-leaning. And I moved down to Georgia in a community that maybe, it's very diverse, but it's a lot of, there's very few haves and a lot of have-nots, and that small percentage of haves get to make a lot of the decisions, if that makes sense. Yeah. So when I was in Nashville, I had gone through a training to become an LGBTQ plus equity and inclusion specialist. And I got this really cool poster. And when I was in Nashville, I had it hanging up proudly in my office. So when I got to Georgia, I put it on my office door because it was important for me to know, for kids to know that, every student's welcome in my office. And the director at the time of the department that I worked in pulled me aside and basically told me I had to take it down, that it could ruffle some feathers. And so I said, well, I'm not willing to take it down, but I am willing to put it on the inside of my door so that once they're inside, they can at least still see it. And then she left and another director came in who was better. And
that's a good way.
I was like, hey, I'm going to put this poster back on my door. And she's like, yeah, go for it. So then I put it back out, like outward facing. I respect that not everybody is an ally. I respect that not everybody wants to see advocacy efforts in place. And at the end of the day, if a parent comes to me and says, I'm not comfortable with that, I would talk to them about it. I would hear their perspective. I would tell them how much I appreciate them bringing this to my attention. And that at the end of the day, it's really important for me that students from every walk of life know that they can come in and talk to me, and there is no judgment in this space. So basically, I'd say thank you for sharing your unsolicited feedback.
Thank you for your feedback. Now get out.
Yeah.
But in the most professional way.
Why? I guess it's because we've been so suppressed and beat up for a long time. Our community is why we need this acceptance, right? We need this flag. We need this symbol of, hey, that teacher's there for me, right?
Mm-hmm.
That may seem simple, but when we had that episode, I remember saying a piece of cloth would not have affected me at all. And Philip had a good point. That was Pana, Illinois in the early 1980s, right?
Yeah.
And I grew up in an area that, and in that time frame, there was racism and homophobia and stuff like that. So I get how a piece of cloth could really represent, like, we all wear hats, we all wear shirts. I mean, stuff represents that. So I get that. And that's one thing that I did learn. But I still feel that, if the parents don't want their children to have these conversations yet, that may, where I'm progressive enough where I want to talk to my nieces and nephews about it. My brother and his wife don't want me to. And I respect that. And I respect, the kicker from the Kansas City Chiefs having his thoughts on what a woman should do. Okay, well, he probably married a lady who wanted to stay at home or wanted to be his servant, right?
Yeah.
And that's his Catholic views, and that's great. I have family members who are very Catholic. They're like Shiite Catholic, like they're really out there. And the wives stay home. The wives will have dinner at 5:30, and they live harmonious, I think. I don't know. They could be miserable. But I'm way off topic now. What was I saying? Oh, about acceptance and stuff. So what's your views on that? The families who are like, okay, I don't want my kids exposed to this. I don't think the teachers are pushing it down throats. I'm not that right being conspiracy.
We're not trying to indoctrinate your children.
Right.
I can assure you we don't
Not
have time to do that. Yeah.
Yeah, you're not cutting off penises and shit.
So as a counselor and really as an educator, I would rather deal with people's intolerance to things than to deal with the loss of a student to suicide or violence because we were too afraid to show that we support them.
Mm-hmm. I like that. Marie, Dr. Papini. I like this.
I find it interesting that they are okay to ban a flag, but not willing to ban a gun. Like the thing that kills more kids than anything.
Mm-hmm.
They're like, no, we have the right for that, but do not put this piece of paper in the school to force all our kids to be gay. Like it just seems it seems insane to me. And I'm not even trying to be pro-gay. I'm just trying to think about this logically. Like it does not make sense why the flag is a problem.
Yeah. I would say the flag is not the problem. I would say it's the people in positions of making decisions that are more of the problem because they know this data. They have people feeding them this data every single day, and they're still choosing to not address it publicly in the same way they are a flag.
Yeah.
Have you had an interaction with a student that was I guess what interactions have you had, positive and negative, that you can shine light on? Because we've had a lot of emails about this.
Mm-hmm.
Literally, where do you want to take it?
Yeah, no, I've had several kids that have come in and just said like, "Hey, I like that poster on your door." One student even shared with me that they were really hesitant about coming down, but once they saw that poster, it made them feel a lot more comfortable. I've been the first person students have told before that they think they might be gay or bisexual or pansexual or whatever it might be. And what I was thinking about this, and I was thinking, have students ever come in and like been derogatory about like what I hang in my office?
Mm-hmm.
And I cannot think of a single one that has ever said, "Ugh, why do you have that poster on your door?" Or, "Ugh, why do you have that little sticker up on your whiteboard that's like the flag?" I think, Wes, and Philip, I'm talking to you too, but Wes, you specifically talked about like growing up that this was like never really a thing. And the world today is so different from when we were kids. And the things that our students are dealing with right now are not things that you and I dealt with when we were their age.
Mm.
We didn't have technology like they have now. We didn't have, I don't think we were influenced as much by the things around us in the same way. Like now it's like you can't escape it. So it really like, I think back to, I grew up in Illinois as well, like a very small town. I didn't realize that the fact that there were only a handful of Black students at my school was like that stuff never registered with me growing up. They were just kids in my school. And that was just me. That was ignorance. Like it wasn't anything that was ever talked about. Same thing with sexuality. The way that it is now is just so different. I have a niece in high school, and she was dating this boy named Duncan. We called him Dunky Donuts. And I texted her one day and said, "Hey, how are things going with Dunky?" And she said, "Oh, I had to end things with him. He had some mental health issues that he needed to work on."
Oh,
that is this generation of kids. They are so like woke when it comes to like the whole person.
Yeah.
And I was like, wait, he had mental health issues? Like what? That is a thing that you guys are saying now? And it is like, it's just so different.
Yeah, I think it's tough to indoctrinate kids because they've got so much more access than we did. Like the ability to, their phones right in their hand or look up stuff, and they see it on TV. And there's no child, I would say, that hasn't heard the word gay or referred to it. Maybe it was negatively, but they've at least been exposed to it. So I didn't even know the word gay. I didn't know that until I was probably high school. I had no idea what it was. So, like, to me, that's if somebody put a rainbow flag in my school, then shocking. Oh my God. But now it just seems, I mean, you see them all everywhere. Every town has got one. There's some business that's got one. Somebody's got it on the back of their car. You see it at Target. They've seen it. So to me, it's not really indoctrination as much as just letting people know where the safe areas are. That's it.
Oh yeah. Back in the old days, like you listened to your parents, you were told, you were indoctrinated. There was I mean, you can go to the library and research, but it is such a different time with the TikToks and the Snapchats and all the media that we have that you could, debunk your parents. I was like, okay, well that's not right. And kids, especially being this woke and actually I wouldn't talk about things back then. I remember even in college, I never would have came out. I never would have expressed feelings because I was the frat guy. And I'm like, yeah, how many girls you get with this weekend? I'm like, oh, at least like 12. No, I didn't. But I was putting on that front. I would never have opened up to my best friends or fraternity brothers or anybody because of that. But now we are in a different time. There's resources. The kids are seeing it. There's pros and cons to that, right? Bullying doesn't stop at 3:00 like it used to. Bullying goes. My friend Tiffany, her kids are, high school and college, and she's like, bullying doesn't stop after recess or after you get off the school bus. It's 24/7, right? And you're right. It is about those conversations and talking, because I think politically and socially, we're all pretty much down the middle, but you have the extremes on both sides. And those are the ones that get the attention. I don't think anybody's grooming kids in high school or grade school and, trans operations when they're 6. It's not happening.
When I started my career in 2007, I was working at a very rural Middle Tennessee town, very rural. And I got assigned, this is like a classic first year counselor. I got assigned to teach a life skills class, which was comical because I was living with my parents and I was 24. But I taught it. And I tried. But I remember specifically one day I had posed a question to the kids. We were talking about relationships and identity and stuff like that. again, it was a group of 8th graders, and I had posed the question, what if being straight was like the non-norm? And so instead of like homosexuality being this like big thing, it was really like, oh, you're straight. And I was like trying to get the kids to think about like how silly it is that we even care what someone decides to be or is or whatever. And I got called into the principal's office the next morning because,
As a teacher.
yeah,
What are you teaching them?
as the counselor teaching a life skills class, because I had offended, I guess, my message, I made a point because the kid went home and talked about it, but their grandmother worked at our school. She was like a secretary or something, and they were very uber religious, and she was appalled that I had brought up sexuality at all, which again, like, you're missing the point, lady.
Right.
But I remember sitting in that meeting, and I'm literally like fresh out of grad school, and I'm like, I cannot believe that this is a big deal, because my mindset, I guess, was very different. And so my principal was very supportive, but just was like, don't talk about that stuff anymore. It's just too risky, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, yeah, no problem. But then later that week, another student came down to my office and just started bawling and was like, I'm gay, but I don't know how to tell my family. And like, we just talked about it. And years later, maybe 10 years later, that same student emailed me and sent me this amazing message about, when I tell my coming out story, you are such a pivotal part of that. And I'm not sharing this to toot my horn. I'm saying I took a risk unknowingly and I offended people, but I also really impacted positively other people.
Mm-hmm.
And so as an educator, the point of this story is I'm willing to take those risks if even one student benefits from my allyship.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree.
My issue I think I have with this is, if we expect parents to teach, parents are like, this is our job. We're supposed to teach the kids about this stuff. But what if they teach it wrong? What if they leave out stuff? What if they, are hateful? And like, I think there's some part of this that has to be brought up in schools. And I don't know the age range that's appropriate, but sexuality is a part of everyone's life. And it's not sex. We're not saying, how do you like to have sex? It is your sexuality. And I wish we had a different word for it, because I think when people hear the first part, they're like, oh, here we go. There goes the left, shoving sex down our throat.
Are you the hot dog or the bun?
Yeah.
It's a top and bottom joke I do.
Yeah. So I don't know if it's, I don't know if I can depend on, and who, God, I don't have kids, so I should be the least one talking about this maybe, but I don't know if I trust all parents to teach what they're supposed to teach. Is that unfair to think?
No, I think I can back you up. In the first episode you talked about, I hear what parents say to their kids. They say it right in front of me while I'm treating their kids. Like, and I would talk to students about this all the time. We have this expectation that our parents they know all these things and they handle everything correctly. And the truth is, like, they're just human. They're human just like us, and they mess up all the time. And they might push their logic on you, but that doesn't mean you have to stick with it if you don't agree with it.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I think, Philip, to your point, I'm not a parent either, except for 3 dogs. But I have worked with thousands of adolescents over the last 17 years, and parenting looks really hard.
Yeah.
Like, I'm okay not joining that party. It seems really difficult. And one thing I really appreciated about my parents is that I remember specifically, it was during a presidential election. Let's say, I think Bill Clinton was one of the candidates. And I remember asking them, like, if I could vote, who would you tell me to vote for? And my dad's response was, well, that's for you to decide. It's not for us to tell you who to vote for. And I wish everyone could have, that kind of guidance in life. But that was really pivotal for me, of like, oh, I get to choose for myself. I don't have to just do what my parents do.
Yeah.
But yeah.
I grew up in a rural area of Illinois as well, and I think my parents did a great job. I'm just throwing that out there. But as far as the community goes, I remember being told things. Black was wrong, gay was wrong, interracial relationships were wrong. And my parents didn't sit us down at the table and say, this is the community as a whole. And I think smaller towns, there's no excuse for ignorance. But I think just opening up to a conversation, and, I try not to get offended by Morgan Wallen or this kicker guy from the Kansas City Chiefs. Okay, that's how he views his wife. That's how he views women. Oh, okay. I don't know how he views gays, but if he says we all go to hell, okay, that's him. It does not bother me at all. But to be able to have these conversations, and I think if I'm a right winger and my kids would come home, I would still want to say, well, that's their life. Even if I believe they're going to hell, that's still, we have a separation of life here. Like that's for you to believe. But I think what I've learned from you is these kids are asking themselves and having more open conversations in high school and grade school and middle school that we ever did.
Yeah.
And that gives me hope to, because again, you hear that, us in the gay LGBT community, we're shoving the poly, the queer, the non-binary, the pronouns, we're shoving that all down the face. And well, here's a flag to shove it more down. Now my kid is, he thinks he's a girl. So now we're going to get an operation. They think that, right? They think that all this stuff is stemming from one thing, but yet there's deeper conversations about all of this. And maybe these kids are more open. Maybe we all thought this back in the day, but we would never say it. This isn't new. It's not like this generation's like, all right, everybody's non-binary now. Like it's been around. It's just people didn't talk about it.
Yeah, I think this generation is definitely more open and accepting in like a macro sense. You had talked about Nex on the previous episode, the student in Oklahoma, and you had said a flag wasn't going to change the outcome of that event. And from a very literal stance, yes, of course. However, if the flag represents tolerance, maybe those girls in the bathroom could have learned a few things about what tolerance means and that it's okay to be different from other people. And maybe then it wouldn't have escalated to that point. And how can we talk about tolerance if we're banning things from classrooms?
Yes. Yeah, totally agree with that. And Wes, you were just talking about if the parents at home teaching, it's wrong to be gay, it's wrong to be lesbian, whatever. That's even more reason in my mind to have a flag in a school, because what if that child is gay and is hearing this from their parents and feels no safe space at this point, and the only safe space is in Marie's classroom, and that's like that is their, and I know it's a stretch, but it's a possibility.
It's out there
where one child could be affected by having a flag in the school to give them a sense of peace or safety. So I think it's even more reason to have a flag in school.
Yeah. Well, maybe it's a curriculum. It's not about the flag. It's literally a curriculum. I just think look at other countries. I mean, the drinking age is lower, but they're more responsible. They're more open to things. They're more liberal. They talk about things. They talk about feelings. And here it's almost like we're programmed to do what I guess these old white people wanted us to do in the beginning, right? And we're still in that because other countries are so far advanced and we think we have everything over here and know everything, and we're almost farther behind. Like I feel, because to me, it's still a flag. It's still not a solution. I understand the acceptance, and Marie does great work. And I can imagine, like, I didn't struggle with it because I always wanted to be straight. So I think nowadays it is different because you're seeing it everywhere and people are more open. So I don't think it would change for me, but I do realize it's a different time. And because my parents didn't even have a birds and a bees conversation with me.
No.
Like at all. So, and I turned out fine. It's kind of a stretch, but, but yeah, no, I get it, but I still think there needs to be curriculum where the right's not offended of we're pushing it down the throat, because I mean, I've talked about straight stuff and I didn't turn straight,
The extremes are always going to be offended. The extremes, left and right, are always going to be offended.
Yeah.
And so we have to stop focusing on, and those are also, it's kind of like the makeup of the school I was at, that the haves is a tiny percent, but they have all the decision-making power. Well, the extremes are not the large majority.
Mm-hmm.
They keep getting elected into offices, which that's a different podcast. But there's so much more in the middle, and there's so much more good happening in the middle than at either extreme, left or right.
Yep.
How do we fix that with an election coming up?
Good social question. Media.
Step 1, remove Marsha Blackburn from office.
Good luck with that.
Yeah. In Tennessee.
Go, Gloria.
Well, I appreciate you kind of helping us talk through this, Marie. We did get quite a bit of feedback on it. And one of the things I love about Wes is he has an opinion, and he will go to his death at that moment with that opinion. But then he'll always, if he feels like he's grown from it, he'll tell us. And I appreciate that. I'm not saying I'm always right. But I was right on that one. No, but I think, this is the point of these conversations, is to be able to talk through them, have somebody else shed some light or some experience, and be able to say, yeah, I can see where this is maybe an okay thing in schools. So I appreciate you doing this with us, Marie.
Yeah. Thank you guys so much. It's been a dream to be on your podcast, so I can check that off my bucket list.
Oh, come back anytime.
Yes.
I love your calmness. I mean, you are educated, you have degrees, much more qualified than we are, especially I am. Philip's really smart, but the feedback we get is people keep listening because we keep talking about things and keep learning and keep growing. And to a point someone made earlier is like, yeah, we believe our parents, but there's different ideas and thoughts and theories out there. And just to know that there's a generation that's up and coming who will be taking care of the world when I'm in a retirement home. It's nice that they're thinking about mental health. They're thinking about things that for the past 2 or 3, decades has gone by the wayside, and we're feeling the effects of it now. So I'm really glad that these conversations are happening and we're learning. We're more down the middle than, like you said, every extreme, right? But there's more people that have more, most of us have more in common than we don't.
Yeah. Well, and I don't speak for every educator. I'm sure there's a handful out there listening right now that are like, who is this girl? Hi, it's nice to meet you. And it takes all kinds. That's the beauty of it. Right. So, that's what I wanted to say. That's my closing bit.
I love it.
Well, I think the lesson is if you do have a problem with the flag in school, is to sit down with somebody who believes opposite than you and just talk through it. And maybe you can come to this understanding. Oh, I didn't think of it like that. Okay. Well, I could see where that would be.
Similar with the campus protests. I think everybody needs to settle down. Let's have a picnic, and we all can talk and share our ideas and go for a walk and talk it out. So thank you, Marie. Together we can.
Here comes the political thing again.
Together we can, and together we did today on 2 Bottles Deep.
Yes, we did.
Yes, this was
Thank
great.
you guys so much.
Yes, Marie, thank you so much. We appreciate you. If you want to come up to Nashville for the Nashville Pride Parade, come on up. We'd love to have you.
I'll be in town. I'll message y'all because I am going to be in town mid-June.
Hey,
perfect. Let's do it. March with us. Let's party.
All right. Well, we appreciate your time. Thank you so much, Marie and Wes.
I just saluted you.
You did. What is it? That's Memorial Day-ish.
Oh, it is. Yeah,
you were doing it for that. So I hope you have a good week, babe.
Hey, thanks for helping me grow.
Yeah, thank you for helping us grow.
Here we grow.
Here we grow. All right.
Love you, babe. Episode of 2 Bottles Deep. If you'd like to be a guest on the show or have a crazy show idea, email us at 2bottlesdeep@gmail.com or hit us up on the old Instagram.
And we really do appreciate you listening to today's show. And when you get the chance, go back and listen to our other episodes, because Lord knows you have nothing better to do.